Nick, do you trust Kevin Owens?
You know, I wouldn't trust him with a weapon behind my back at the end of a show, but otherwise, I think he seems pretty nice overall. I mean, it was an interesting theme that was scattered throughout the show, a bit heavy-handed, if you would, but
Well,
you know,
that's how WWE does it.
Yeah, well,
I mean, not always, but for something like, I gotta say, I like this, because they're owning Kevin Owens' history, and Kevin Owens had an answer for it. He's like, hey, yeah, that makes me look like I can't be trusted, but all those other people had it coming. Well, except for Kofi. Like, he's at least admitting he's not altruistic in all of his turns. But, I mean, it was sort of like, yeah, what can I say? But, I had my reasons. And Cody, you haven't given me a reason, essentially, is what he's saying. And then there's ambiguous situations, like in the tag match, Kevin dropped down to the floor to fend off Waller right around the time Cody looked like he was going for a hot take. It didn't actually turn into anything, which I liked, so that every time someone drops to the floor, it isn't always a big misunderstanding, but it showed it was almost a misunderstanding. And then more stuff happened, and then there was a brawl where they got shoved into each other, and Cody was sort of like, oh, is that an accident? Okay, I'll trust him. There's aspects of it that are heavy-handed, Nick, but there's other aspects of it that are sort of like everyone's just on guard. Everyone's on edge, maybe even trying to not overreact, but you can see them trying not to overreact. So I actually think, I mean, it's WWE, but I think it's pretty well played for a WWE angle where they're teasing tension, but not showing their hand, whether Cody's not going to look like a fool for not trusting KO. And he's also going to seem like a good friend if he gets turned on, not a fool. But he also clearly has his guard up a little. So I think they're both playing it well.
No, I think actually all things considered, actually, first of all, it was the right story for the match being a week away. If we are not going to have some big, blood feud heading into the match in Berlin, I think that this goes a long way in terms of just capturing a story, one that is worth telling, one that feels accurate to the actual players here. I think also, Wade, I like the point that you make, and I think you're right about them owning it for the Kevin Owens character. In many ways, I think it sets them up much better for the future with Kevin Owens. This isn't a case of the Big Show when he turned so many times that by the end, the character was just so greatly damaged. This is now just becoming part of his character of not being trusted, which is different from just shifting characters to fit whatever narrative WWE is trying to tell at a particular moment. And I think in that regard, first of all, Kevin Owens is just, he's settled into being such a fantastic character who no longer is at risk of giving off the, you being worried for him if he falls further down the chain and then comes back and forth. He's so established at this point that this lack of trust actually gives him a dimension that, if anything, makes him even more interesting than it would have been otherwise, or at an earlier point of his career.
I wish I had time with the memory recall to just remember every circumstance where Kevin said they had it coming. I'd like to review his logic on that. It's, I've watched wrestling a long time. He's turned a lot of people. It was interesting they showed Chris Jericho. That is part of the Kevin Owens story. Someone he turned on. It shows in a way, it shows a lack of fear. Like, well, what do we have to lose? It's no big deal. It's part of our history. He's on the other channel, whatever. Watch if you want. We're making boatloads of money. We don't care. I think that's kind of where WWE is now compared to where they were. Other than, taking a fun little dig that they know will get under someone's skin now and then. So yeah, I wish I could, but Kevin Owens is true to himself. He's got his story. He's got his way of framing his actions. He started off by going, I don't deserve this title match. I don't want it. And then he was sort of almost cornered into it. And so now he's going to make the best of it. But the whole thing started not with him going, thank you, I'll take it. But more like, no, Cody, come on, you should face someone who has a better winning record. So it's not like he even went into this with, how could he be a heel if that was his approach? So my question to you is, are we getting a Kevin Owens heel turn? And do you want to see one? And I'll complicate the question because KO tonight, I don't think we should let this go without further comment. Kevin Owens said they had it coming. So the question is, does Kevin Owens justify turning on Cody because his interpretation of something Cody does causes in his mind, Cody, to deserve it. And we haven't seen that yet. So I throw that out there as a possibility. But yeah, talk about the pros and cons of KO turning.
So I think, it's interesting that you point out the Chris Jericho moment with him appearing in the video clip, because this was giving to mind flashbacks to what I think is one of the greatest storylines WWE has ever told, which was Chris Jericho versus Shawn Michaels circa 2008, or maybe early 2009. I think it was just throughout the last half of 2008, though, where, it started off, in a misunderstanding realm, and it turned into a full-blown blood feud. And as I was watching Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes interact, I mean, to me, that is an excellent feud. You can almost, close your eyes and envision this becoming, a feud of the decades type thing, and a one that lasts, resolves itself, comes again, and then just reimagines itself for many, many years within their careers. I think as characters, they fit. I think they would have tremendous in-ring chemistry. And I think it does come from not just them having, friendly fire, but actually having a true blue feud. And I think what this could easily evolve from is, Kevin Owens losing, maybe through a misunderstanding, maybe through Cody having an accidental benefit that doesn't make his win totally legitimate, that sends Kevin Owens over the edge. And yeah, in that case, I would look to Kevin Owens being the heel at that point, and then having them not just be a one pay-per-view, maybe not even being a two pay-per-view, but having this go quite a long time. Because I also think Cody Rhodes needs it, by the way. I was thinking about his current title reign and the folks that he has competed against in comparison to some of the other the big first time reigns, like Stone Cold Steve Austin, who lost the title by this point in his reign, but still was going against Undertaker, Kane, more significant wrestlers than I think really Cody Rhodes has had the benefit of right now. And I think a truly vicious Kevin Owens would be a viable enough contender for Cody to actually have, under his belt at this point in his reign.
I think the good part with Kevin Owens is no matter how people feel about him turning, if they think he turns too often or it's too predictable, because no matter how they tell this story, that some people would be critical in that way, Kevin Owens can make anything interesting. Like he's such a really good, he's good in the ring, he's good on the mic. He introduces a little bit of meta without it being annoying when he talks about, this is where if I walk to the ring, the GM, then we fight, and then a GM introduces a tag match. It's not really meta as much as saying there's predictable things that happen in wrestling. I'm going to call it ahead of time. Or if you say someone's name during a promo, then you're allowed to come out. But if we don't say your name, you're not allowed to come out. Like he's sort of making fun of some tropes, but he doesn't do it in a way that pulls a curtain back or draws undue attention onto it. It's just sort of his way of saying, I see things and I'm willing to talk about things that maybe you guys see too. Just little things like that make him more interesting because he doesn't seem to be just going through the motions. And I do think it keeps things interesting with Cody. And I wouldn't be against there being a multi-month storyline with these two. Might mean there's a turn at Bash in Berlin. It might mean there's not. Maybe they align. Maybe they go their separate ways, cross paths quickly thereafter. But this does seem like it almost has to be more than a one-off match, Cody wins clean, and then they just go their separate ways. I mean, it would almost be refreshing if they did that, because it would sort of reset that it's possible, so you're not always just sure something else is going to happen.
But if not him, then who, Wade? Because at this point, it feels like Cody has been fully moved away from the Bloodline. And the Bloodline is, the heel version of it fills a weird spot on the card. It feels almost exclusively set up just for Roman. Strong enough for him, not strong enough to be in a world title picture anymore, and not really having a whole lot of impact otherwise. I mean, having them float in the tag team division hardly makes them a real threat to Cody. But then you're looking, for the other heels on the roster that Cody would have an extended program with, even into next month. We could talk about the Grayson Waller and Austin Theory of like serving a role, and actually the improvement that I think both are taking, in particular Grayson Waller, I think has been looking stronger and stronger as a performer, not necessarily as a, given a strength of a character worthy of a title reign. But I mean, I don't think we're looking at Carmelo Hayes. I don't think we're looking at Andrade. I don't think we're looking at LA Knight. We're certainly not looking at anyone in that United States Championship picture. I don't see how it's not Kevin Owens for the time being. And I just don't think you're going to see Cody intermingling with the Roman Reigns picture. And I don't think you should, because I think, quite honestly, there was a really, really bad shot of Cody Rhodes backstage when he was just, the lighting on him made him look too tanned, too artificial, too fake. The teeth looked too white when Kevin Owens approached him. Did you catch that, Wade? He looked like a wax figure. And
he looked like he was just smiling, but yeah, like wax figure, like just
into the abyss.
Like
yeah. Into the abyss.
It was a little weird.
You know, almost like when the celebrity goes from actually being really relevant to being the version of themselves that is like set for history. Like that was the look that he's going to always have, the like the Hulk Hogan, the tanned look, the smile, that like, okay, this is going to be my legacy look. But then, like, you can see the aging happening around it. Now, I don't think he looked old. He looked fake. And I think that to have him, you know, in comparison to the, I think, very visceral excitement around Roman Reigns right now, it's not going to work.
All right, I want to talk more about this. We'll get some chat room comments up on the screen, and we'll react to them and read them. But first, let's just do a quick introduction. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Friday, August 23rd, 2024. I'm Wade Keller, editor, publisher, founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website PWTorch.com. And also the host of various podcasts, such as this one, the Wade Keller Post Show, following Raw, Dynamite, and Smackdown live on the PWTorch YouTube channel. Subscribe to this podcast, the podcast audio-only version of this, by searching Wade Keller in your podcast app. When you search Wade Keller, you'll see the red logo and the blue logo show up. Subscribe to both. The red logo show are these post shows. The blue logo show right now features the AEW All In preview episode. Rich Fan and I previewed the show. It also includes the entire Tony Khan media Q&A leading into All In. Search Wade Keller, subscribe. It's free. And when you subscribe to the red logo show, you can also get access to shows that are not on YouTube, like our flashback episodes. And while you're at it, search PWTorch, because then you can subscribe to our free PWTorch Daily Cast lineup. I'm not part of those shows, but there's a great lineup of shows, different shows each day of the week with different themes, including Acknowledging WWE with Kevin Duncan and Javier Machado. That is the weekly WWE themed show that replaced Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure, which had a great run, Nick. But now the next great run is you and me hosting post shows semi-regularly on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Welcome.
I didn't know where that was going, but that was perfect. And
I know you did. We'll say the other stuff.
A much more condensed intro. Last time I could have gone down the street, got a ham and cheese sandwich, eaten it in time by the time you get back, by the time you're doing your intro. So, yeah, I mean, I'm glad to be here.
Just because I'm not done with my intro.
Oh, okay.
I'm just throwing you a little sooner this time, but we got more to say. You're cracking me up, bobbing your head to my routine. As I did it, people on YouTube can see that. I can block your camera anytime. I got the power.
Sex sells. You're not going to do that, so it's fine.
All right. So if you want to be part of the show, this is the next part of the plug section. If you're a VIP member of PWTorch or Patreon supporter, there is a code in my TV report at pwtorchvip.com. The Smackdown report, you can become a video caller. You can also, if you're a Patreon supporter, find the posts that we put up during Raw, Dynamite, and Smackdown tonight with a video caller link. You don't have to have your camera on if you prefer to be just audio. That's fine. But if you want to be a video
put your camera
and audio
on,
caller,
people.
You know, Nick, I've seen some of these people.
Wait,
and
my God.
No.
I mean, with joking. All due respect, you're not exactly a prize either. My God.
Wow.
Teasing.
No, I know. Of course I know that. I know how you feel. So what I should say is I haven't seen some of these people, so be careful what you wish for. That's maybe a better way to put it.
Okay.
So anyway, you can also participate without even watching our live feed. If you have a question or comment or topic you want us to address from the show, wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. That's a good way to be part of the show. Send an email, and then when you listen to the show or watch it later, either in podcast or YouTube format, you can see if your email made our conversation. And then finally, we have our chat room. If you are watching us live on YouTube, thank you. Welcome. And we have the chat room open, and we'll be incorporating the comments from those in the chat into the show as we progress. Super chats, always welcome. And of course, as you know, always get priority. All right. I think that is the end of the plugs for now. So let's get back to our conversation about Kevin Owens and Cody, because we got some people in the chat room with some things to say. Nick,
Wade, for someone who used to be so critical of the overly long WWE pay-per-views, that's all I'm going to say. And for the record, and I don't care who can see hear this. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, sometimes our post shows are longer than the shows we're talking about. Like we've had 2 hour plus SmackDown post shows.
That's true.
I love most of our co-hosts.
Gotcha. Hey, listen, if you're seeing me do like Pilates over here, I'm not getting a workout in. I have a puppy that is annoyed that we are doing this late at night, but I'm going to tell people I'm not apologizing, because a week ago this time when I was going to call into the show, I was in the emergency room with her. So you know what? Priorities, people. She's here. I'm here. We're doing this together. Go ahead, Wade.
Well, in emergency room, was that kennel cough related?
The kennel cough, it got me. First time ever. Yeah. For a tiny little dog, it was scary.
She's not that tiny. What's she, like 35, 40 pounds?
17.
Yeah, okay. Well, she looked bigger in the photo.
Yeah.
I didn't have context.
The Barbatis tend to be. Yeah. We look. Everything is bigger than it appears. Go ahead.
All right, so we have David Chase in the chat as we pivot to his comment. He goes, pretty anticlimactic, unfired ending. Not a bad match, but was expecting something to happen like Owens turning or teasing a turn or Waller turning. So the Waller theory thing, we'll talk about that as a separate topic. I want to get to that. But I disagree with David, because it's not like I was watching this. I was like, what if Cody and KO just win and they just celebrate and the show goes off the air? We need to do that every once in a while. Like, not every match where there's a chance of something happening should something happen, because then it becomes predictable, not unpredictable. It becomes, all right, we're just waiting around for the big angle. Refreshing. Now, we did get a tease of a turn, though. And we haven't really gone into the Zapruder film here, or the Zapruder film type approach here. But Kevin Owens was coming up from behind with the belt held up in a way that he might be hitting Cody from behind, and the announcers and crowd are like, whoa. And then Cody turned in time to see Kevin coming, and Kevin just handed him the belt like, oh, I was just walking up to hand you the belt. And then he went up and looked at Waller in theory. It looked like Kevin Owens was thinking of hitting Cody and changed his mind when Cody turned around. I wish it was slightly more subtle, so it was a little more up for interpretation, but they did, tease that. Now, I could even imagine Kevin Owens just kind of saying, like, I'm not going to turn on you, Cody, but the fans think I'm going to, so I'm just going to play into that just to mess with them, but I'm not going to turn on them. Like, he could actually take it to that level and sort of like, wink at Cody about how, look at these people, they think I'm going to turn on you, but I'm not. But we did it wasn't what, David said, nothing happened. I mean, they did tease a turn, but now's not the time. I mean, they could have turned him, but I don't think, just let him go in with a question mark of whether they're friends or not. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think I agree with you. I think it was enough for where the story is right now. With the big show a week away, I think it would look too heavy-handed to just jump to that point in the story. And I don't think that you see that much in WWE right now, where we're like, there's natural organic storyline advancements. And in this case, you weren't working with much of a story. I think the foundation of them being allies was made a long time ago. And so I'm glad that they did do that. I mean, this was a frequent criticism of babyfaces for many years in WWE, was that they didn't have friends. Well, so I think that they are friends, but when success comes on the horizon in any friend group, when business and pleasure intermix, then the drama starts. And I think that's what you're seeing. It was a slight twist. I didn't really love the way Kevin Owens played that at the end. I thought that was it was a little too heavy-handed and too obvious of it isn't what you think you saw kind of thing. I think there could have been more nuance to it. But either way, I think it was enough. And as I said, the real evolution of that story comes at the pay-per-view, at the premium live event. This was a show that I think overall not much happened in, but I do think that there were key character developments rather than key storyline developments. And I think that Kevin Owens having now attached to him this overt acknowledged frequency in turning is actually really good for the long run of his character. And we could go a year, 2 years down the line and have this element of him brought up multiple times and know that tonight was actually the starting point where that was really overtly mentioned at the frequency that it then would grow into.
David Chase added, nothing against Kevin Owens as a talent, but he's been so irrelevant in WWE's kayfabe over the last 3 to 4 years that it's hard to care about this feud.
That's not true.
Have they made a mistake? Yeah. Explain it, because I was going to say, have they made a mistake going with Kevin Owens without giving him a winning streak and instead tell the story that he just didn't have a lot of impressive wins?
But I don't think that's true. I mean, I think he has been in the past 3 or 4 years. He's been in the WrestleMania main event, and when he was elevated to that storyline with Steve Austin. I mean, he was in and out of with a Roman Reigns, which is as high as you're going to go, and nobody was beating Roman Reigns. And I just think that seems like an absurd notion. Please.
Sadler version 3 says, how is he irrelevant? He was probably Roman's most common opponent during his title reign. Derek Hubbard says, sometimes it's okay to end a show with a happy house show style finish, especially given the heavy heat finish last week. I do wish they do that more. I mean, I think sometimes it shouldn't just be a squash match where somebody wins, somebody loses, and you move on. I mean, there should be competitive matches where it just sort of resets the bar a little bit. It just goes, it's not required that we always give you some sort of angle or whatever. It's okay to not have a post-match beatdown or a ref bump or a controversy or something. I wish they sprinkled that in semi-regularly at a higher level than they do.
Yeah,
Lady B, by the way.
It also gives the turn, like when Shawn Michaels at the very end, I think it was even after the title card came up, when he super kicked Hulk Hogan back in 2005 at the end of their seemingly, celebratory end of the show. It makes those moments stick out more and not seem so obvious that a turn is going to become if there's just more happy endings that outweigh the turns, because otherwise you can see it coming from a mile away.
Yeah. Lady B says, sometimes the good guys win, and that's all. Lady B also adds, so much sass and petty on this live stream already. I'm into it.
Yeah, I know, Wade. I wish you would calm down with that.
Lady B likes it. By the way, we have some requests to see your puppy. The heel Mark says, Nick, let's see the puppy. Brock Benningfield says, show us the puppy.
Really? I'm shocked. Here she is. Where is she?
Look at that.
Yeah, she's healing. She's healing over here.
Cute. Oh, that's sweet. My dog's not in the office right now, so
I assume that's what they meant by "show me your puppies," right?
You never know. We
save the rest for the Patreon, right?
Yeah. Well, that's not exactly the platform, but yeah. Brock says, puppy love. Heel Mark says, aw. And Lady B says, aw, the baby. So
that was my nickname in high school. It's good.
Which one?
The baby.
The baby? Okay. Okay. Derek Hubbard added, they used the main event to solidify allegiance between Cody and Owens while hinting at a potential fracture. That's of the wrestling story. So what's your prediction? What happens?
So what
happens at Berlin with these two?
At Berlin, I'm going to say Cody Rhodes wins by, with one of those Kevin Owens had his arms under the rope or a leg under the rope type thing, or Kevin Owens stops himself from using a weapon that Cody inadvertently ends up using, and then Kevin resents the win. And then it maybe goes on a little bit. I don't think it ends with Kevin Owens clobbering him over the head with a chair, although, I mean, I guess that's possible. But I think that it's a slower burn into a full-blown heel turn by Kevin Owens. I think here's why it's also important. I think Kevin Owens is probably one of the few people that could go really, really hardcore heel on Cody Rhodes and feel like a genuine heel that's worth booing for the fans. He's still cool. He's still someone worth, respecting as a wrestler, but I think he can do heel proper. And I've said this, and maybe I'm just like overly nervous about it, but I always think Cody is just on the verge of breaking with people. I think people can simultaneously really appreciate his work ethic and really appreciate his dedication to the fans, but also tire of the kid on scholarship routine.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Someone brought up Randy Orton in the chat. Derek did. Derek Hubbard brought up Randy Orton in the chat room. A feud against Owens followed by a feud against Randy would keep Cody busy until WrestleMania season. And there's another comment. Oh yeah, 27 Newsman said, I do feel like they could have just done the exact same angle with Orton. They're friends, but can you trust Randy?
Yeah, I think so. I actually do think Randy would be the opposite of what I just said about Kevin Owens. I feel like putting Cody in the ring with Randy at this point might make it too tempting for people to cheer Randy. I think yes, the idea of Cody versus Randy fits storyline purposes for many, many years worth of content in there. I think character-wise, you could kind of see it. I think in ring, I have no desire to see it, but I do think there's something gritty about the idea of Cody versus Kevin that feels old school to me, that feels like they could do some really incredible street fights and just really good character work that, to be frank with you, I just haven't seen in Randy in many years at this point. I think Randy feels like a Hall of Famer. He feels like the cake is baked, but not a whole lot of character development. To me, that feels less exciting.
Yep.
And I see what Lady B is saying, that Randy and Cody have so much more history, but a lot of people have history. That doesn't mean it's good for the future.
Yeah. Sadler version 3 says, I think now that they turn both KO and Orton in the future so Cody can feud with them, then they can do a story. The title reign turning his friends against him and him feeling pressure about that. So, I mean, they could have Cody, the story could be over time, Cody can't trust his friends. And that is part of an story arc that leads to something later with Cody not trusting someone he should.
Yeah, or there could be a version of the story where Kevin Owens doesn't turn at all. And it's like just when he's expecting Kevin to be the one that turns on him, it's actually Randy. And then, it's just like he got the wrong one, you got, so that I can see that happening too. It depends how quickly they want to get to Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes.
Yeah. Lady B says, I'd love to see Randy going for number 16 against Cody. So, all right. Randy's busy right now with Gunther, but certainly he could end up back on Smackdown. So let's bring the heel, Mark, an audio caller, into the show. Mark, welcome. We know you can't be on camera tonight. We saw your comment in the chat room, but welcome. And what's on your mind about Smackdown tonight?
Oh, man. So much. I had to put that comment in there because, honestly, I had to stay off camera just so Nick could feel better about himself. I don't want to take all the glory away. So that's why I had to stay off camera. Too much sexy.
There you go. At some point, people need to start paying for this thing.
You know what I'm saying? Well, actually, they paid me to stay away. So,
okay, good.
Anywho, because of the incident,
Nick, are you gonna plug your OnlyFans tonight or not? I can't remember.
Nick,
are you gonna plug your OnlyFans tonight or not?
Yeah, I don't know that I want to be overt about who it is. I think my feet do the talking. They're fine.
Oh my gosh! Woo! Hell yeah!
All right.
Oh man! All right. So because of my incident that I had earlier today, I missed the first half hour of SmackDown. I was dealing with an ambulance. So, anywho, I did get to catch the women's match. And just like you, Nick, I was sitting there going, what's going on? I was starting to fall back asleep. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going, oh, man, this is like having an MS flare-up and watching this match was just making me want to Is paint drying better than this? I don't know. But it was bad. Like, honestly, I was just like, I was in tears for Jade Cargill because I want so much for her to succeed.
Yeah.
And I just felt like it wasn't, like, it didn't seem like a solid effort.
Well, what do you think went wrong?
I could see.
What Mark, what do you think went wrong?
I mean, honestly, from what I could see, it was, I thought a lot of the match really showcased more Naomi and Bianca than Jade, because a lot of the Jade stuff was, I don't know, it seemed kind of textbook, you know what I mean? You didn't see.
Yes, I didn't have a problem. I just say I didn't have a problem with the match. I mean, it was 10 minutes. There was a commercial break in the middle. It was formula. It was just building to a hot tag for Jade. When Jade got the hot tag, there was a decent pop. She took on all the heels. Chaos broke out. They lead to some near falls. They go to a finish. I mean, it felt formula, and unless I missed something, it seemed just fine in its execution. So I don't know. I mean, it just sort of was what it was.
To each their own. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah.
Kevin,
Well, that's why that's what you didn't like about it. Yeah.
My best friend Kevin, he loves Mercedes Moné. I can't stand it. But that's just, everybody has their own take in life. You know what I'm saying? Everybody has their own take. I thought the women's match was a little.
That's why I asked what you didn't like about it, because I wanted to just understand your take more. And so I get it.
I wanted to, honestly, I wanted to see Jade. I wanted to see Jade showcase, because I know that's what you want to do. I know you didn't really shell out and try and get Jade over to WWE to not have her wrestling as a tag team. You want her wrestling on her own. So show me like something for her to really, really stand out that says she can do this on her own and doesn't need Bianca and Naomi as supporting actors. You know what I mean?
So my take on that, I'll throw to you, Nick, in a second. My take on this is Jade isn't ready for what you want her to be. And WWE has figured out that they want to protect her and give her a chance to work on some things in tag team matches, because they have high hopes for her and they don't want to be exposed beforehand. Derek Hubbard said, I enjoyed the women's match. Action was fine. I thought Jade showed more natural fire than usual. Moreover, she didn't have a misstep or timing issue. It was one of her better showings. Brock Benningfield noted she got a good pop. But Brock Benningfield also said, I'm afraid Jade is on that hamster wheel just spinning. Nick, your thoughts?
It's going too long. It's going, the spinning is accurate. I mean, it now feels what felt like it was easing Jade into a comfort zone feels like we are not comfortable with her leaving this zone. And that feels like it is glaringly obvious that we are avoiding something when it comes to Jade Cargill at this point. So I said, when I saw the women's match, all full disclosure, I knocked out, boom, asleep. Went back and rewound it, and I saw exactly what you saw about that. This seemed to be more of a Naomi showcase, that I think that is going to be setting up Naomi to look strong in the immediacy. But yet there is this Jade Cargill problem that it's not landing. So like yes, there's enough about the presentation that causes a pop, and yeah, you can say that she's over, but it's beginning to feel failed. And I think it's people are willing for it to be better. The stuff that they're giving Tonga Loa isn't far off when I think people recognize soon that they should be giving Jade Cargill, of the uncertainty, the awkwardness.
Yeah.
And Wade, you and I have talked about this before. If I don't have a view of Jade prior to WWE, so I'm not seeing the strides of how far she's come. But from my lens, only knowing her from what I've seen of her since she debuted in the main roster, it just feels unprepared.
Yeah, it feels kind of clunky to me. And it feels like they want it to happen and they're trying it to happen. And we as fans are like, come on, come on, come on. And it's like, it's not happening as fast as we want it to, because we're expecting this to come right away. because we're like, dude, you brought her over. We're thinking she's ready because you put her on the main roster right away.
Right, but also WWE fans have long memories, and they also, even though you're not exactly thinking about these other people in the moment, we've seen people who've caught on faster in a time when we've all, for the most part, lived through Kurt Angle debuting, and then suddenly a certain amount of months later being the world champion, and that being what a real blue chipper looks like. I mean, this is not advancing. It's not advancing to a significant way at all. I mean, this is someone we were talking about when she first signed, of who would she be going up against at Mania, Charlotte Flair or Bianca Belair. And now it's like, I can't even imagine her being trusted by Royal Rumble for a significant singles match. Sorry, that's where I'm at with it.
Next thing I wanted to talk to
Mark, I'm not ready to switch it. I want to throw in a couple comments from the chat before you switch up. Yeah, no, that's fine. Some people just chiming in for something Nick said about AEW. Sadler version 3 said, I saw most of her AEW matches and she didn't feel terrible to me. It's weird they're so careful with her. Terrible is an unfair word, but really, 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 really green. And I didn't have too many reallys in there. I mean, terrible is, she didn't do enough to be terrible, but man, she did not look comfortable or ready. Derek Hubbard says, unfortunately, I don't think Jade is ready to go it on her own. The goal should be to highlight her without exposing her before one big showdown match, which can be more hype and less action. And Lady B adds, she isn't ready to be on her own, but she looks like a star. It's a hard position to be in. And Derek added, if you have high hopes and a big investment, you should not put a person in a position to fail. Sadler added, she just came across as a typical green monster wrestler, but a female version. So here's my thing. I'll just conclude the Jade discussion this way. Mark, I don't think most people are worked up about needing to see her do something outside of the tag division with Bianca yet. I think some are, but I'm not. I think most fans are like, hey, this is a cool tag team, and she's cool. And I just don't think most fans filling these buildings with 10, 15,000 people are thinking, oh, they're hiding Jade in a tag team. I think what they're seeing is someone who looks like a star who's friends with Bianca, who gets hot tags and hits cool power moves. And I think we're a year away from that. People, a tipping point of a casual fan being restless about it and thinking about what you're thinking about, because you're bringing knowledge to the table of her being green and the assumption she is put in this tag team, a smart one, that it's to protect her so she can learn gradually. But I don't sense the crowds are like, oh, I wish you get out of the tag division and just show us what you can do in a singles match. That day will come. As Lady B said, it's a little awkward because they gave her so much hype coming in. It's almost like she's a victim of the hype that they gave her coming in, especially because they didn't want her to go through NXT first. And if they don't think she's ready for singles matches without looking bad, maybe they should have sent her to NXT or gotten a better sense of what she could do first. Nick, do you want to chime in on this at all?
I think you're part of it. You're right with Wade, but I also think that there's, yes, she's a victim of the hype, but at the same time, it feels like I do think to the casual viewer, or not even casual viewer, just to the obvious viewer, that it's Bianca Belair doing charity by her. I do think that. I think that it feels like we are sidelining a really imperative character to get this other person over, and I think her limited in-ring time stands out. I do think that's all there. I agree with you. I don't feel like we're on the verge of like a riot breaking loose, but I actually think the tag team match at the Premium Live event is very important to see. Is this something that people are tiring of in terms of this tag team? And also, I just think their lack of depth in the tag team division, lack of significant chemistry with the opponents, I think that's all coming to fruition, where this just feels stale at this point.
All right, Mark, go ahead to your next topic.
Yeah. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was the Bloodline segment with Solo kind of stripping, so to speak, for a lack of a better term, the Samoan Werewolf of his half of the tag titles and giving it back to Tangaloa, or giving it to Tangaloa, correct? It's Tama Tonga and Tangaloa, right?
Right, correct.
Yep.
Yeah, I always get them mixed up. So Yeah, even when I'm tagging stuff on Instagram, I'm like, is it Tama Tonga or Tonga Loa that I'm tagging? Anyway, but so he gave it to him, and I'm like, oh gosh. And then you heard, the whole crowd, you can't wrestle. You can't wrestle. And I'm like, dude, is this Tonga Loa thing just like extremely failed?
I gotta tell you, I hate this Tongaloa nastiness that's out there. First of all, let me say this: yes, there were there some awkward moments with him. Fine. Do I think they played into the Fredo Corleone bit with him a bit when they saw, that it was kind of going in that direction? Sure. I think he became, the goofy one, the awkward one, blah blah blah. They've always did that with Jimmy Uso at times too, but then they pull it back when they realize it's getting a little too much in the caricature type category. Here's the thing about the Tongaloa thing. First of all, I mean, I would hope that we as a society would be more evolved to yell that at somebody who clearly does know how to wrestle. Whether he's great or not is one thing. But I'm just tired of the botchamania type pulls on him. Like his debut. His debut was not botched. Nobody thought it was botched until they saw a separate camera angle where he was by a hair a little different. But from the main camera angle that was used for the premium live event, there was literally nothing wrong with that man's debut. The other thing of who did he back into the ropes? I guess it was Cody a couple weeks ago or whatnot. None of that was a real problem. I mean, this is a stretch, guys. This really, really is.
Yeah, I thought it was a stretch because I literally sit there and I'm like, I don't see where they're getting this from. Can someone show me where they're getting this from? Because I don't see a problem.
It's not nice.
Just known to not.
Nice.
The announcers played into it tonight. In a certain way, defining him as a smash mouth wrestler, not someone who's going to show off his technical ability. They just, we're kind of, again, owning the knowledge that Tongaloa is not a great worker. There's no shame in that. He just isn't. And it's, not a huge deal. They obviously, if it weren't for Jacob Fatu's foot injury, he wouldn't be the tag champ. He'd just be a guy standing in the background, taking bumps at ringside and interfering. But they got forced into it because Tongaloa's probably got limited things he feels comfortable doing without a setback. But yeah, chanting "you can't wrestle" at somebody who hasn't, there's a lot of things to get on wrestlers' case about. If people want to get on Logan Paul about throwing a dog off about, someone else, it looks like, kicked the dog off the boat. But there's a lot of things you can pick on that was retrended in the last few days. The dog thing off the boat. But there's things people do or are involved in that you can give them a hard time about. But chanting "you can't wrestle" at somebody who's just out there trying to do their job and they're doing it competently, even if they're not doing it to your standard. Yeah, I'm with Nick on this one. It just seems kind of bullying and
yeah, it just felt.
I know. And by the way, he's passable. I mean, he is it's not a disaster. I've seen bad wrestlers. It's not a disaster. He's just not flashy.
Well, I think it's also indicative of, it's not just him. It's the overall new bloodline of, by the way, you have Tama Tonga who's out there working his butt off. I mean, he was working really, really hard tonight. And, he's not getting the shine that I feel like he deserves. I think that there needs to be a reset on the bloodline. And yes, as inopportune as this injury to Jacob Fatu is, to be frank with you, I actually think it gives a moment to reset it a bit, because there is absolutely nothing about Solo Sikoa in this moment that is that I think is, setting him up for any great matches. I don't know that anybody has any desire to actually see Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa. However, Jacob Fatu as the counterpoint to a Roman Reigns, a Cody Rhodes, that feels exhilarating in a weird way. So I just think that there needs to be a complete look at what we're doing with the new bloodline, how long this storyline is going to go, and really where the long-term plan is. I think Fatu is the one to really invest in, and I think Tama Tonga is the workhorse of that whole group. Solo Sikoa has really, really faded. I think he is showing himself to not be someone who anybody would want to see in a main event singles match at this point. I think he's obviously a compelling, weekly character, but he's not a special attraction. Jacob Fatu, despite being on weekly, is indeed a special attraction. And it's not just because he's new. It's how he presents himself, and he feels completely different.
All right.
And by the way,
guys,
well, I want to say what Sadler just wrote about the big botch about Tongaloa. That's really BS, though, honestly, because if you want to talk about that botch that he had at Money in the Bank, we all watched that man hit his head. So, like, honestly, when he was knocked out and hit the announce table. So then when he got up and then delivered whatever move he was going to do after that, honestly, and I'm not saying, Sadler, you're the one who's saying this, but the people who are saying it tied to that moment, shame on you, quite honestly. That's no different than those people who sit on the couch and watch the Olympics and going like, oh, didn't nail that landing, please.
Yeah. I mean, there are botch videos on Tonga that are I don't know if botch is the right word, where it's just like Todd Champion. I'm referencing a wrestler from 30 some years ago. His nickname was Clumsy F. I won't say his full name. In the pages of the Torch, like there's been some really, really clumsy wrestlers, and Tonga's had some moments, slow-mo chops of Okada that just look bad. And I mean, once you get a reputation, people are looking for it. But I think your defense, Nick, is fair. And as Derek said, he took some, Derek Hubbard commented, he took some clean bumps tonight. He fed well for the babyface teams. I mean, I think Tonga's going to get better in WWE by having a really smart group of people around him in the ring and behind the scenes, helping hide some of this stuff. I mean, his reputation precedes him, and I just think people are going to look at a microscope for anything that doesn't go well. But my God, they're going to be real forgiving of a lot of things that their darling wrestlers do that I notice, and I don't hesitate to point out when it happens. There's, it's a hard job, and there's going to be botches. And when you have the reputation and people look for them and document them, and then they selectively ignore, plenty of, super kicks or big moves or bumps that are clumsy or don't land. I mean, I don't know. It's just not, unless somebody brings it on by being just just an ass about themselves and acting like they're better than they are. If they're just going out there and doing their job, I mean, it's fine. Go ahead,
there's only one. Oh, sorry, man.
Go ahead.
There's only one wrestler in the past that has botched moves, and I know this is wrong of me for holding it over their head, but I kind of do, and that's Nia Jax. I've literally held everything that she's done botched in her past, like over her head, and I know it's probably wrong of me, and I know she's having a great run right now, and I'm like, yeah, she's doing great. That's fine, and I know she's doing good. But I still don't like her because, dude, she messed up a lot in the past, and that's just my own opinion.
Yeah, but here's the thing:
that's in the past.
Yeah, but that's your prerogative. But like you just acknowledged, she's having a tremendous run now. It sounds like you can, at least make that differential. I think one thing that I want to say is I think the Tongas have been a vital part of WWE for this year by just being there. I think, listen, I think it's pretty much, well established. They're not actual like blood members of the Anawahi family, but I think by having their debuts, presented that they were, the look that they were able to add to the bloodline, they added an edge, it added a different feel. It felt like something new rather than just more of like the Fatu branch of the Anawahi family. I think they've done a really good job of serving that, that role. And everybody knows that part of of a story when like all of a sudden the cousins from the wrong side of the tracks appear and then all of a sudden you start seeing the deeper family dynamics. I loved what they brought to the table. I think the failure of the new bloodline is linked solely to Solo's presentation. He was the reason.
Question I have for you, speaking that you brought up the Fatu branch, I heard rumors that they were talking to Zilla and bringing Zilla Fatu up as well. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've been seeing that on Instagram and on like YouTube shorts and everything. And I'm like, I wonder if that's a possibility. Has anybody else heard that one? Because he's pretty incredible from matches that I've seen.
So, I mean, I saw that on on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. It doesn't, but to me, it's like, it's not necessarily of, have you heard it? Is it happening or whatnot? It's, if more people were to debut as part of this storyline, is there a long-term enough plan to satiate the growth of all of these individuals? And I think that I have a concern about in a weird way, but I have no negative opinion on more people debuting as part of this storyline.
Let me throw a couple comments up. Sadler version 3 says, I watched Tongalo a lot in New Japan and he was fine there. So just someone giving him a little boost there. As far as Solo goes, Sadler says Solo's problem is he doesn't have the equity in ring, but they're treating him like Roman and he barely wrestles. He should be squashing mid-card baby faces to boost his credibility. Solo was protected and then didn't wrestle much, and then he wasn't protected, and then he was given a big boost and a big role. But to me, the ultimate thing is you can overcome a lot if you have gravitas, if you have that X factor. And he doesn't, and my thing, a broken record, he's fine. He's fine in this role. It's not great. It's not a disaster. It's just fine. But the problem is the Bloodline has been anything but just fine. Sammy's been great. Jay and Jimmy have risen to the occasion. Paul Heyman's amazing. Roman's been amazing. So Solo stands out as like, he's just sort of, he's going through the motions of it. It prevents him from overshadowing Roman. So in that sense, it's fine. At least you have Jacob Fatu, who seems like, he's the enforcer for Solo, but he's the guy that people, I think, ultimately see as the ultimate person for Roman to beat based on his early performances. So it's not ideal. People are rooting for Solo in WWE. They like him. He's a, from what I've heard, a good level-headed guy. Doesn't get into trouble, family man. And he makes life easy for him and he does the basics well, but he doesn't excel at anything. And it is hurting. It's dragging things down a little bit from where ideally they'd be if you had a better follow-up tribal chief. But they don't. But I'm not going to bear him because I don't think he's awful. I just think he's just sort of fine. But he probably lost too many matches, and maybe getting some extra wins would be good. But WWE doesn't really do that. They don't build people up through filling. They're more worried about holding viewers than they are building up to a story by showing fans matches that they might not care about as part of building someone up. It's just they don't spend that TV time that way.
Yeah. One thing I would say is he was great in his prior iteration of the Bloodline. Where this went wrong was his attire, which looked like I've said before, a kid playing dress up. And if the new Bloodline was presented as what we're seeing with Jacob Fatu is just a bunch of street fighters who are completely unmanageable, and there's no real one leader. They're almost he's the lead. He's the one who can control the uncontrollable, but he's uncontrollable himself. That would have worked a lot better.
All right, very good. Mark, back to you. Oh, I muted Mark. Sorry. I was hearing rustling. Start your comments over there, Mark. Yep.
Yeah, I got one last, topic I want to bring up, and then I got a statement that I want to make. So the topic that I wanted to say is that this is kind of like a prediction I'm making for the KO Cody Rhodes. Honestly, because somebody brought up Randy Orton, and this is honestly what I was thinking. Randy Orton gets involved somehow during the match or after the match, and that either stems a triple threat going into Bad Blood, or it stems the Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes going into Bad Blood.
It's possible, definitely possible. I mean, I think I think they have two roads to take. I think either one works. I would be more excited for a Rhodes versus Owens blood feud.
Oh, that's definitely what I want, dude. I've been a KO fan since he was in Ring of Honor, so that's I want to see KO with a long title run, but that's just me. I'm a homer. That's not going to happen. I already know that. Last thing I really wanted to say is I really appreciate you guys. I have been taking so much information that I gained from you, Wade, in my own journalistic with trying to jumpstart my own podcast. I watch what you do with your interviews, And I really appreciate it, man. Like you're not knowing it, but I watch what you do, and I gain knowledge just from watching you.
That's
And
great.
the other thing I really want to say is I love the community that is here in the chat, because literally I posted, man, I'm not going to be on camera. My MS is flaring up, and boom, Lady B was like, oh man. And oh man, I can't remember because my MS gives me a terrible memory. But two other individuals were like, man, I hope you're okay, Mark. And it was just, dude, like that was just, it felt amazing. You know what I mean? So it's just, I love the community that you got here, Wade. And dude, I just love calling and talking wrestling with you. And I learned so much just from watching doing what you do.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate the kind words, and I hope the people appreciate how much you appreciate how kind they were in the chat. It is a good group.
And I hope I can get you on my podcast as a guest one time.
Oh,
I think he was talking to you, Nick.
no, he was talking to you.
No, I was talking to you.
I know. No, but when you went, I was like, yeah.
Oh, I'd love to have Nick on too. I would love to have Nick on to talk wrestling on my podcast.
No, Mark, you didn't give me you didn't give me any compliment. I'm not coming. Goodbye.
No, you're the sexy stud. I gotta have you on there, man.
Oh, now you've won him over. All right.
No. In fact, I'll be weekly at that point.
All right, y'all have a great night,
Mark.
man. Keep up all the good work.
Bye, Mark. Feel better.
Appreciate it. All right, let's bring Derek from Utah in. If you're ready for some guns, we've got him. Derek, welcome.
Hi, how are you guys today?
Good to talk to you.
Just kind of some big picture topics. First of all, we've talked a lot about individual talent, or you guys have talked about a lot about individual talent tonight. And I think one of the most notable changes I see in WWE, and I see fans complain about it, but if it was the other way and it reverted back to the way it was under Vince, I think we'd have more to complain about. And that is whether it's Solo or whether it's Tonga or whether it's Jade, they're given a chance. And if something doesn't go right, they're not taken off TV or they don't go on a sabbatical. I mean, Solo to me is not hitting the way you would want a main event heel to hit, but they haven't given up on him. They're letting him develop, knowing he's a young talent with some promise. And Jade, obviously, they had a big investment in her, and they thought obviously she has a immaculate look. And instead of putting her in a position to fail, they are protecting her and making sure that she can develop in a way that she has a chance to succeed. And it seems like when Vince was in charge, especially towards the back end of his run, we'd see a lot where somebody would get 2 or 3 weeks where it looked like they were going to get behind them, and then they would have some kind of a slip up, and then they would go away. And so now, whether it's Carmelo Hayes stumbling on a promo or something not hitting the way it should, or even a miss by Tonga Loa, those guys are not taken off TV. They're given a chance to be role players or supporting players or play an important part in the show. And so I think as fans, we do need to sometimes, we can still be critical and maybe even cynical, but it's also important to give people some grace, knowing that we don't want all the talent that we love. They've probably fallen on their faces before too. They were given a chance to be what they are now. And I think that's a really important thing to remember as fans.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Derek. I actually think the most glaringly anti-Vince thing for me is the Andrade Carmelo Hayes feud that is there. And you would talk about things that are giving people chances and getting like a longer form way of people talent showcasing their talent in a non-traditional way to what we know in WWE. That's it. I mean, I feel like there's traces of Booker T versus Chris Benoit back in like 1997 in WCW, where it's like such quality wrestling that everyone knows is so quality, and it just needs a different type of path than everything else that's happening on the show. I think it's the good news is the bad news is when it comes to the breath that people are being given, because there is certain elements that feels like it's going on too long. I think the Jade Cargill feels like it's going too long. The Solo Sikoa stuff needs to shift and pivot, and they're not doing that. And that's, I think that people definitely have responded to things that feel safe in WWE as not feeling as exciting. But I think you can have both. I think you can have a safety net for people, but also, pivot when you need to. And there's nothing wrong with doing that.
I mean, some people wrestle their way out of a job and other people make mistakes, and management believes that's fine. It's like, it's not ideal, but yeah, it's not like 1 strike you're out or 3 strikes you're out. It's a whole array of context that they're aware of and backstory. And it does help if they think you're wanting to learn and that you're getting better and there's something there, but unfortunately it's not polished yet. So yeah, I mean, grace is a good word. Derek, what else?
Yeah.
And then just another big picture. I mean, a lot of people commenting about the show tonight, if they liked it or if it felt maybe a little routine. But what I see with WWE right now is they feel like a team that's playing with a lead and playing with the lead the right way, where they're not lackadaisical. You can tell that they're not getting lazy about it, but they are playing with confidence. They don't feel a need to throw a bomb down the middle of the field or anything like that. They're not taking or the hot shot booking anything to try to pop a rating. They know where they're going. And I think that's what we feel is they're telling stories week to week. And if 1 week, that's not like a big exclamation point at the end of the story, they're not worried about it because they're playing with confidence and they have confidence in the talent they're using and confidence at the writing that they're doing. And I think you can see contrast over whether it's AEW now or WWE in the past, where you could tell there was a little bit of panic. And so they sped something up or they rushed something and they blew it. They blew it because we didn't really get to feel the anticipation and then actually see it play out in a climatic way. And so even the shows tonight, which you got a good house show style, feel good ending.
Yeah.
That still had some story beats, but they're also not, hitting the grand finale for the fireworks. They're putting it off. And so I like that style. And sometimes it's going to leave you watching a show saying, but if everything was a highlight, nothing would be a highlight.
That's right, Derek. And I think they're at a point where not every week needs to be this big dramatic incident. I think we're in the world now where Roman Reigns is back, but he's obviously not going to appear every single week. But when he does appear, that's where the energy is. That's honestly, in many ways, sorry, Cody, he's the lead at this point. He is the almost like supersedes everything else that's going on. And then, of course, you have Cody, who's exceptional and exceptionally popular, which draws the crowds, keeps the live viewers tuning in. But the truth of the matter is, going into Bash in Berlin, much of the focus is going to be on the Gunther element of it. It doesn't need to be on this basically second-rate feud that Cody Rhodes is in. Not everything needs to be the biggest all the time. And then the other thing is, look, we're at the dog days of the end of summer. I mean, it's a beautiful day here in New Jersey. I don't know what it's like where you guys are, but it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm not saying it's going to tank the ratings, but listen, I didn't want to stay in necessarily and watch this show tonight, but you did because of commitment to Wade Keller. But it's just, I think it allows people to pace themselves a little bit differently this time of year. But I do think that the big show of next week in Berlin is going to be important. I think a couple things. I think you can anticipate there's going to be a extremely memorable reception for the Gunther match that I think is going to be, one of those lifetime memory moments. And I actually think Randy Orton is exactly the type of caliber opponent for him to stand opposite against, to make that go over the top in terms of being exceptional. I think you're going to obviously see storyline advancement at that point of a significant nature with Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens, and then a decent undercard underneath. And I just think that's where we are for now, because the next big thing is Bad Blood as a title is being used for a very specific reason. I think there is going to be blood feuds that are going crazy. I think that is where you're going to see Roman versus Solo. I don't think they're saving that for some bigger day. And then, of course, we're on our way to War Games. And War Games, I think we can all understandably see, is going to be Bloodline versus Bloodline. And I just think that that's the path that we're on.
Yep. Derek, anything else you want to add?
Just the last comment in defense of Tonga Loa, and sometimes I'm hesitant to say or do this, but I wrestled for lots of years, and when I was wrestling an opponent, what I was worried about is when it's my time to shine, can they take bumps for me, and can they make me look good if I'm going to try to make them look good? And what I see in Tonga Loa, he doesn't have to hit flashy offense, but he's wrestling a high-energy babyface team tonight, and he took nice, crisp bumps for them. And I don't know if you noticed, but Montez Ford came up short on his flip drive.
Yeah, he definitely did.
Tonga Loa saved him.
Yeah,
I mean, he's the one who stepped in front, took
good observation. Yeah,
made sure that he didn't crash and burn. And so when I'm looking for, and I think wrestling fans, they like to use the expression a good worker, which now they just say, oh, that means they can hit cool high spots. Yeah. No, I think a good worker is someone you can trust in the ring to allow you to showcase what your talents are. And I don't think that's an issue for Tonga Loa. So you can put me in saying he's a serviceable, passable worker who, if I was a wrestler on that roster, I would not be afraid to wrestle. There's other guys who get a lot more praise and press who I would be like, I don't want to get in. I don't want to get in with Roosh. I mean, what does Roosh do for you? You know, Roosh will just bury you. He's not going to take any of your moves.
Yep.
You know, and so I think there needs to be some defensive bent.
Well, and I think there also needs to be a defense of all three of the new Bloodline members. Each one of them, you know, the key to like when Roman Reigns would speak, when you would be making you would be going from Paul Heyman to Jimmy to Jay and even Sammy at one point. You'd be watching their facial expressions and whatnot. This is clearly, they're not at the caliber of acting. We all know that. But they each have a unique confidence that they all bring to it. You know, you have Tama Tonga, who never breaks that like scowl character, but that's with intention. Tonga Loa is very comfortable and very confident on camera, just standing there. He's a good-looking guy. He stands there with such poise and everything. Like, you don't get the sense that this man is uncomfortable at all. He doesn't give the feeling that a lot of people do, that what you're about to watch is about to break. He is there. He's very present. And then, of course, Jacob Fatu is a star in and above his own right. But this is not a terrible trio by any stretch of the imagination.
Thanks, sir.
Agreed. Well, thanks, guys. You guys have a good night.
Absolutely. Thank you. Interesting comment from Brock Benningfield just about this topic. Getting Fatu to be submissive to Solo is an interesting layer. What do you make of that? It seems injury prone. But he's going to be my enforcer. I mean, it just feels like nothing is an accident. Nothing just goes unnoticed. Is this the beginning of something that is going to develop? Like, does this portend a certain something at some point? What do you think?
Of course it is. Well, first of all, he's been described as the enforcer before. So that wasn't the first time they've said it, but definitely the most meaning behind it, I would say, of intention.
Asking him to give up a tag title. Like, give up your tag title. It was sort of an order. As we talked about earlier, this is best for us. It was more like, I'm going to tell you what to do and you will do it in the way that I tell you to do it. That's
I'm with you. And this is definitely I see you rising, I'm putting my thumb down on you moment that Jacob Fatu is, of course, going to rebel against. I mean, even the idea of the hug of Jacob Fatu, you just felt like, oh my God, Jacob Fatu, like, doesn't seem the most huggable. Of anybody on this show, the least huggable person would be Jacob Fatu.
Yes.
So to have been tamed is what that indicated in that moment. I mean, that is, obviously setting up what I do think that there's been a major pivot in here. I think whatever plans WWE had for the long-term storytelling of having Solo be a really long-term, big-time show opponent for Roman has shifted. I think it's all Jacob all the time in that regard. And I think it's the right decision to make, quite honestly.
All right, let's hit on just a few other topics from SmackDown here. I said we're going to talk about Waller and Theory and the potential breakup between them. So tell me what you think of the development here. Theory's body language and facial expressions in reaction to Waller saying, "Oh no, we're good friends and nothing to worry about, and you're stirring trouble." What do you I mean? Because we've got this whole Cody KO thing, but concurrently we have this Waller Theory tension that they push and then they pull back, push and pull back. So what do you think about the way they're telling the story?
So I don't think they're in a rush, or nor do they need to be in a rush to break them up, because I don't think there's just one ready to break loose that people are hungry to see on their own. I do think that this has been, a resuscitating program for Austin Theory at a time when he really needed it. But I'm telling you, Wade, I am not a Grayson Waller watcher. I haven't, full disclosure, have not been watching in and out every single week as much as I did when we were on the PWTorch network, when we with a show every week to watch. I'm telling you to tune back in with such intention for the purposes of this show right now and watching Grayson Waller. He has grown so much on the microphone. I mean, when he first got the call up, there was a level of greenness to his verbal skills. I mean, he always had a level of charisma, but it felt unrefined. This was on. He nailed that entire first segment as far as I was concerned. I thought he was the best one on the mic there. Even although I thought Nick Aldis was great for that 10 seconds that he was on the screen. I mean, perfectly got his lines in. But I think Grayson Waller is the one. I always kind of thought that this was going to be a breakout for Austin Theory, maybe. And by breakout, I never really thought he was ready at the end of this to suddenly be in a world title program, or even necessarily immediately into the United States Championship, but maybe more likely that. I think Waller is going to be the one that breaks big. I think the verbal is going to be what carries him over the edge. Theory is looking so he's, again, a good-looking man, in great shape, has got a lot of potential, knows he has potential. He's starting to look like a older, bigger version of the kid we knew. And I don't know that it feels all that novel or potential anymore. I don't think the potential is screaming off of him anymore. I think Waller feels significantly fresher and like there's a more developing star there. And I think, if anything, he's the one that fans could easily get behind and turn into a major babyface.
Yeah. I'm with you that they're not in a hurry. But it could happen anytime at the same time. It doesn't feel like we need to get someone quickly. They just want this to brew for a while. It seems like by turning Theory babyface, and that's the way this has been pointing, to me, it's more about just wanting Waller to be on his own more than having big plans for Theory as a babyface. But I'm not sure on that. That's just, it seems it's more about Waller than Theory. He's taking the lead in this, and Theory's been more, not the alpha in the dynamic. But I'm curious. I mean, they might think this is a guy that we want to get in a babyface role for a couple of years because I think his ring style works better, even if his personality plays more into the heel bit. So I'm curious to see where they both go. But Waller's a keeper. I don't think you can be a keeper, but you don't have to be on a trajectory for world title matches and pay PLEs. I mean, I don't think that's his role. It's fine if he overachieves and they can get him to a Roddy Piper level where you want to see him in main event matches. Great, but that's not the standard that I'm judging success with him on. It's I don't like the comparison to Miz, but it's sort of, and Miz did have a little bit of world title run here and there. But I see Waller as a who do you compare him to?
You're going to get frustrated. Well, here's what you're going to cringe when I say this. But at a certain point in his career, 3-4 years ago, Sami Zayn. I mean, when he was leading out Shinsuke Nakamura, and I say that to say this.
Talking about his video pack, the documentary on him.
This could go one of two ways. It could go where he just falls into the comical, the lower performing Miz days. Or you get him in the right moment where particular scene, particular skit, particular match and segment goes really, really right. He could find himself managing and into a program of real significance that gives him a chance to break loose. Wouldn't shock me. That would not shock me at all from what I saw tonight. And so minor, but I think if you really go back and watch his early, a year, we're talking about a year. This isn't that long. His first time in WWE, and then watch tonight's segment and how he commanded that, I was blown away. I really was. And I'm not a fan. I wasn't willing for this to be better than it was.
Yep. No, good clarification. Okay, let's bring our next video caller in, Mike from Hershey. Mike, welcome. Good to see you. Talk to you.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Can you hear me good?
We can.
Okay,
I'm hearing my voice echo back, so I think we're on your speakers and not your earbuds.
Okay, I wonder how to fix that because that happened last time.
Yeah.
So,
what we can do is I can not talk while you're talking and mute you while I talk, and then it won't be a problem.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So I'm talking here. All right, here we go. So yeah, everything you guys have said so far is, first of all, agreed with the whole. I made the comment earlier that I could kind of foresee this angle. This was basically the same angle I thought that they would do with Randy. The part that I didn't think when I'm talking about the Kevin Owens angle with Cody, meaning that there's a friend and there's this tension, and they could have honestly done the same sort of thing. But what put me back on that was a comment that Nick made was basically Randy there's something special going on with Randy at this point. For whatever reason, he's so likable. It's on several different levels that if they actually put him against Cody, that could be the thing that kind of, evens it out for some fans to almost want Randy to win. With Kevin Owens, other than the fact that he's held the Universal title in the past, it's not as if he's going for some record. The people would like to see that with Randy. It's like, how many years he has left. But anyway, he's just more likable of a character overall, I guess, throughout the years. At this point, he's not always been likable, but he's very likable right now, I guess is what I'm getting at. That was just a comment. You guys discussed that topic. The thing I actually called in about, because everybody kind of picked, I'll pick the scraps here at this point, but I like the Nia Jax segment tonight. The thing about the Nia Jax segment wasn't really Nia Jax. The thing were the auxiliary players. And what is going on with Tiffany Stratton? And then also the question of, is there any rehabbing this Pretty Deadly team after what they've sort of become? I think worse teams have like, what do I kind of think of them as like a New Age Outlaws potential? Like started off kind of goofy, took a little bit more serious, somehow became popular, affiliated with them. So they seem to be affiliating themselves at this point with, just weird segments that I don't know if there's any bringing them back. I think like a nasty streak from them at some point, as weird as they are, for most of viewers tuning in, entertaining looking, different looking team. If they were nasty, I think that would make them, I think there's some potential there. But right now, the comedy thing, I just don't think has a path forward. What do you guys think?
So let's start with Pretty Deadly. We'll talk about Nia and Tiffany in a second, Nick. So Pretty Deadly are comedic figures in NXT. You bring them up, they're going to be comedic figures in WWE. Doesn't mean that they have to be complete doormat jokes who we're laughing at. And I think the complaints about their push so far, Nick, is that they're very much just comedy. They're not pushing them. They're not framing them as a threat, that there's some more substance to them. And as Mike said, a nasty streak where they can, flip a switch and get vicious might help. But how do you feel about them as an act and how they're being used? And how would you, what trajectory should they be on? Because I think you can pivot away from this and something can happen in WWE. I mean, WWE's audience is willing to eat out of their hand. They're like, oh, now we have to take this team seriously. Give us a little bit to show us why, and we're on board. Like they have a good relationship with their fans now. So if all it's going to take is like Elton just going, we need to take ourselves more seriously, and then they do a training video that you think is going to be comedy, and it's a little bit more serious than people expect, and then boom, they win a match you don't expect them to, and now they're fixed. I mean, my point is, the fans will buy into it, but you have to decide to do it and then give them a reason to do it. What do you think?
Well, I think that when they first came up, they felt like they had enough of an edge to them that they were a threat in their own way. I mean, I don't know that they were going to ever be some big like powerhouse team, but they did feel like the smarter team that was going to be dangerously smart and actually would have a shot at the tag team titles right off the bat. And that seems to have just dissipated into Billy and Chuck land like really quickly and then not really coming back from it. I would argue at this point, I mean, I don't think it's just a singular training video, which I know you're being, just, not necessarily fully serious about that, Wade, but like, I do think a change in look would go a long way. I think the presentation of them is fine, but also that one thing that like the team, like the New Age Outlaw had, Mike, that when you talk about something like that being really special is there was unique personalities to each that then were stronger for being together. I still feel like we don't know who they really, really are. They're just the guys with the accents who are like thinly built, who have this like humor that only they seem to get. I think they like even the slightest bit of character development that makes them edgier, but in a not just like comedy kind of route would go a long way. I don't know. When I watch them, I don't see anything that gets me excited though. I mean, I wouldn't be like, there's actually no piece of me from what I've seen of them that would have any interest in them. Doesn't mean that if they weren't to change it, I wouldn't be impressed or that they couldn't get me there. But I don't look at them and feel like we're at some big missed opportunity right now. What I do think overall is there seems to be a genuine missed opportunity with the tag team division. Like, I would love to be able to envision the Tongas having these, great tag team matches up against them. And like, even like when you think about the Survivor Series era of the think like, oh, what other tag teams would they be paired against and with and all that. But it just feels like that this is such a low priority for WWE at this rate to, invest at all in the development of tag teams and the tag team titles. They've just been kind of held captive by the Bloodline storyline for so many years at this point that when it pivots into another direction, it feels so minor in comparison.
Mike, I'll throw back to you for follow-up on Pretty Deadly, and then we'll talk about Nia Jax and Tiffany.
I think just in my mind, sort of missed opportunity. I think I really don't watch too much NXT, but the one thing I did catch with them was their last match where I think they got shoved in a trunk or dumped in a river or something. And then, but I recall like their wrestling was good, and I think again, sometimes like Goldust is a character, not to relate too much, but could be a nasty wrestler in the ring, so he had some credibility. He was a threat to people. I just feel like that team with a little bit of a look change, could have some potential. There's been worse tag teams in WWE that have gone, that have gone further. I think they have potential should they do something with them. I'll just keep it on the same sort of topic. If you guys wanted to talk about what Tiffany Stratton is doing now, just my queen, and this, obviously is she playing it off? Everything else about that segment was super cheesy, but I do enjoy the cheesy part of it. So, it's still entertaining to me. But what do you guys think about where they're going with this? And
go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead.
Just to mention the around the corner shot of Chelsea Green at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So first of all, Mike, I want to say a couple. First of all, is that the Randy Savage shirt you have on, Mike? So this is a true story. When I first came into wrestling, I can vividly remember my earliest memories of life were my dad's VHSs of wrestling. And there was a commercial that they had with that shirt. Like they would have I think it was even probably in retrospect, Stephanie McMahon or someone modeling the shirts. And I always wanted that shirt. Never got it. But I remember thinking and begging my parents for that and being like, no, here, watch the segment where they drink eggs or whatever all over again.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, my best buddy, we trade dogs when we go on vacation, right? Mm-hmm. So dog sitting. And as my gift for dog sitting his dogs, when they went away, they actually went down and I think they went to the Hogan's Beach Shop or whatever. And
in Clearwater.
And he bought this for, this is what he brought me home from his vacation. So then they popped by there. So this was that's all I got, man. But
listen, I just passed Hogan's Beach Shop was a month ago, walked past him, Jimmy Hart and Brian Knobs all on the street. The amazing thing is they all think who they are at this point, and really nobody cares. I mean, it was kind of interesting. I remember I turned to my friend and I said, "Isn't it so weird that he sold 78,000 tickets allegedly at Pontiac, and then now we just walked by him on the boardwalk? It's like a Tuesday." But anyway, the Nia Jax, Tiffany Stratton segment. Here's what I'll say. This is now the third storyline we're talking in 1 hour about a tag team or a friend group where there's distrust being sown. And I do think that Triple H's, and I use the Triple H not literally necessarily about Paul Levesque, but just how the booking is right now. There always seems to be a level of duplicity of the storylines happening simultaneously. Like when you have some of the distrust, I think it was in the Bloodline, then magically there was in Judgment Day in the exact same week. And I do think this is a time where he can start spacing some of this out, so it doesn't all hit at the exact same moment. And it's also becoming a bit redundant that everybody who has ever gotten along needs to suddenly have a moment where they distrust somebody. And yes, that's the nature of sports. It's the nature of competition, but it also just feels a little heavy-handed at this point. However, with that said, of the three that we're talking about, the three storylines where there's distrust, I have the highest level of faith, and it makes the most sense for me to have Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton in the position that they're in. Because when Wade and I talked last on July 6th, and we were talking about Money in the Bank, I think it was, the thing that made the most sense was for Tiffany Stratton to win Money in the Bank, Nia Jax to then win the title, and then for them to, have this awkward dynamic that then is developed. And I think that I like it. I think Nia Jax is doing obviously the best work of her entire career, but Tiffany Stratton, of everybody, when we're spending so much time talking about Jade Cargill. I don't want to talk about Jade Cargill anymore. I want to talk about the fact that Tiffany Stratton is ready. She's there. She doesn't need to be handheld. She looks like a star to me. And she doesn't look like she's holding other people back in the process. Love that. I thought the best part of that whole segment, though, was the very end with Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. I thought that was phenomenal. Loved every bit of it. It was the way of storytelling done right, involving female characters that didn't feel so like you're hating on the female element of it. I just thought it was great.
Yeah, Chelsea Green has been a lot of fun. Nick, there's your cord or your mic is rubbing against something. We're hearing some.
Well, when I get excited, it rubs against my face. Relax. I'll stop.
Yes, something. As you're moving around, I can hear a little.
Yeah,
bit.
it's this thing.
I don't care, but I bet some of our listeners do. So I'm advocating for them.
All right.
Oh, you're gonna. Yeah. All right. So yeah, Chelsea Green's great, and the chemistry of Chelsea Green and Piper Niven is. I mean, it's not like 2024 is not going to be remembered for that, but it's been a pleasant surprise. It's been fun. The two, I mean, they really do just seem to have a real affection for playing off of each other, and it works. Tiffany, her acting tonight wasn't my favorite, but maybe it was intentional. Maybe it's meant to be a little cheesy to lead Nia Jax to think she's okay with how she's been treating her. I don't think my inclination is to think she's trying to act like what Nia Jax said last week didn't disillusion her to Nia, but instead made her want to work harder to please Nia. But her acting is hit or miss. Fortunately, her character can kind of withstand that. But I think finding the right tone, especially if she's on a journey to be a babyface, is important. And I don't know that her acting and her instincts are quite where you want them to be. But like I said, I think there's some forgiveness because her character probably doesn't need that. Doesn't need to be. Her character can have a little schmaltz and cheesiness built in, I guess, is a way to put it. Mike, back to you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you put it into the context, I don't think if you watch it and you thought that, put it this way, I think the segment was set up to make it look as if Chelsea knew what she was doing. It wasn't as if there was this side conversation happening and she wasn't aware that Nia was in the.
That's a good point.
Right. So she was meant to be conniving and catch her, she wanted to be overheard. Is the way to put it. So I think when you do it that way, it's good. If you do it the other way, it's like one of those things that you talk about sometimes, Wade. Like, why are they filming a guy talking on his cell phone? Well, what's going to happen, right? I mean, how would that possibly be there? But anyway, so I thought it was good. I don't know, not necessarily the most remarkable episode of Smackdown I ever watched, but I had a good time watching it. Kind of picked through it. I think I missed a couple things. Street Profits, I don't know, they're trying, but I'm not even going to bring it up because I don't want to be the one to start the conversation about it, because to me it's give or take. I just don't even, Nothing really to say about it other than they were on the show. So
yeah,
that's all I got, guys. Cheers. Have a great Friday night.
Thank you. Cheers.
Right.
Good to talk to you. So Nick, quick, he said he didn't want to bring up, but he did. The Street Profits. Where are you on them? How do you feel about the Profits?
I don't think they're a disaster, but I don't think that they're worth anything at all being excited or interested in. I feel like that Wade, when we talk about people that you talked about, like that could suddenly make a quick pivot to suddenly being important and being serious. That's where that's an act I see as being ready for that. You know, they're on the shelf kind of right now where they're hiding in plain sight by being on camera, but not doing anything exceptional. And now that they're not going to be linked with Bobby Lashley, of course, anytime soon, I don't dislike their linkage to BFAB. I don't think that's a disaster. Although, you know, it's weird. It feels like they're holding back on chemistry. And I don't know how to describe it, but it's like she's there, but not really like hanging on them in a full-throated kind of way. That it's like she's there, but from a distance, like, how do I want to word this? Like, she's our sister, not our potential, like, lover. Like, it just feels like there's a literal, like, 2-foot difference between her and them in ways that you didn't see with Sherry and Harlem Heat when she came out with them, when she would literally be arms around them, flanking them. You know, I think if I were talking to BFAB, I would tell her, pull up Harlem Heat, end of 94, all the way to like very early 96 when Sherry was at her best with them, and watch her chemistry with Booker T and Stevie Ray. That would be what they need to start replicating. Can't hear you, Wade.
Yep. Azan in the chat says the Street Profits are just there. Brock Benningfield says Street Profits can be saved. And Lady B says BFAB is not helping them. They, I think she means need another manager.
They might. But I'm saying I think that she could make tweaks right now to actually make the pairing work better.
Yeah. I don't like when there's an appendage to an act, whatever that appendage is, and it's like even Paul Ellering with Final Testament, AOP, like
it feels
what is he? Yeah. What is he? It feels like a favor. Like that's definitely. He's there as a favor. I don't want someone to, like, I saw Paul Ellering manage the Road Warriors in the Rise of the Road Warriors in the AWA and the NWA in the 80s, and he can talk. And is he the mastermind? Is he a hanger-on? Is he the financial guy who just likes a little TV time? There's no character development for him. He's an appendage, and I don't like that because I just. Why? So BFAB, Elektra Lopez, like, have they differentiated both of them enough? Or like, could you ask an average WWE fan to talk about either of them and explain how they're different and what their roles are and what kind of factor that they are in their faction or team?
So I think Elektra Lopez is actually worse than BFAB at this point, because I do think that BFAB actually looks the part of being a star. And I think that that's actually what they're holding on to, is that she looks very, authentically like a very modern woman that is cool. And I just think that fits. And I think it just reads authentically. I think they're trying to figure out who she is. I thought she looked more comfortable on the microphone today than she has at moments. I don't think she was great, but I thought it was better. I'm telling you, I really think the issue here is they want her to be in with them, but there's an intention of the actors in this scene to not have any sexual chemistry. I think that's what reads like. We're keeping each other at a distance. We're platonic. And I don't know that maybe I'm looking too far into it, but that is how it reads to me. Like that, whatever it is, there's a block there from them going all the way in of being connected. Go ahead.
Oh, and it didn't help that they tried to turn it with Lashley, and the crowd liked Lashley and the Profits and cheered him. And then that's just sort of like, and then they kind of floundered and were just sort of undefined. And now they're just a utility tag team. Brock Benningfield in the chat said maybe they could take them off TV for a while and then bring them back when they have a story. Do they have the depth for that? I feel like they took some time off and came back. Yeah. I can't remember the context of it, but I mean, time off can help because then when they come back, it's like, whoa, absence makes the heart grow fonder, but you have to have a purpose for them. But you could just develop a storyline where it makes sense.
Yeah.
You could keep them on TV and give them something. But I mean, what you see is what you might get. Montez Ford has now been around too long to be a breakout single star. I mean, that ship has sailed, I think. And I mean, they started going that direction with both guys. And I just think they're going to they're just tag team wrestlers. And they're going to be trying to think kind of New Day-esque in the sense that, people like them and they'll go to house shows and they'll pop for Ford's obligatory flip dive early in a match, and that's it.
Yeah, and Wade, in the years since, so you mentioned the New Day, since Kofi Mania, the main event picture in WWE has changed. And maybe it's changed because that Vince is no longer there, but it really changed once the Roman Reigns character changed, where there's less movement at the very, very top for those people who, have been, at a certain level of the card to have their breakthrough brass ring moment. It's just different now. They're not really bringing in new acts all that much to fill those roles. They're built over time. And I think we saw Sami Zayn, for example, was someone who organically, little incrementally, I should say, got to where, he was established the main event picture. But I listen, you're not going to see Montez Ford having a surprise win at the Royal Rumble. At this point, I wouldn't even think he would ever be a surprise win of a King of the Ring. It's a little late.
It does. Yeah. It feels like we've kind of quietly entered the zone of it's a little late. LA Knight put a lot into Santos Escobar match, building this up on less than 10-minute, pretty straightforward win. I'm not going to complain about it because I've advocated for pretty straightforward wins. They built in the excuse for Santos that his Angel and Alberto and Electra were kicked out from ringside early. So, I mean, in as much as that protects you, that you don't have someone to interfere, it throws off your game plan. That's what they gave him. But it was just a good one for LA Knight. Now he says he's showing up in Berlin and wants an opponent for his U.S. title. So how are you feeling about, what do you think about this match, the build, the outcome, and LA Knight in particular?
I didn't think Santos looked that good. Am I allowed to say that? I thought he physically looked a little off. I think he's not in the best shape that he's ever been. I think he something is just not there. And maybe it's because a year ago there was more energy to him, maybe more enthusiasm. And of course you see wrestlers go up and down with their physical just their physical presentation. But it just, to me, I didn't get the sense that I was watching somebody who knew he was on the verge of really breaking big. LA Knight, on the other hand, looked more comfortable in his position as the established, upper mid-card guy, knowing that's where he's going to be and being the friend of the main eventers. He seems firmly in that role, firmly comfortable, firmly planted. Think he's right exactly where he needs to be in this moment. I don't anticipate ever watching a 5-star LA Knight match, but I find him a pleasant watch. And again, he's someone who at times you would watch and just go, is something going to break right now? Is he going to really rise to this occasion? He feels very comfortable and feels very much in the moment. And I think it works.
Nick, anything else you want to bring up from tonight's show?
No, I mean, I thought it was in the moment, it didn't feel like the most thrilling show ever, but I think it was a fine show for what it was. And I think fine isn't a bad word to use. Yeah, I think it didn't turn me off from wanting to watch next week. I think it also allowed for, how some of the weeks when Roman Reigns wasn't on previously before Cody was on the show, it just felt like, why are we even watching the show? We're just running a show just to get to the next week. Didn't feel that way. I would caution them to put a little bit more of importance on the Cody Rhodes segments. I don't know if this struck you, Wade, but when he had his second entrance of the night, it's like, I did kind of have that moment where I went back where I was like, I feel like even WCW knew better than to do this with Hulk Hogan, to not have the big entrance twice in one night. I just think he needs to be protected a little bit more as the big star, because he had a great entrance at the very beginning. And then by the time he came out for the match and the corny backstage segment with him smiling off in the distance, you can, there's somewhere in between the old Steve Austin literally being in every quarter hour, but then also just having him be presented in such a way that he's not a star. And I think that he is a star. We all know him to be a star. But I think they need to get there. They need to get there with a real significant feud. Hopefully Kevin Owens is that for everybody involved. And I think they're on the right track with everything. And I just think everything needs its level of patience.
Very, very good. No, I think that's well put. We will talk to you soon. Maybe be talking about other things with you soon. Anything you want to plug right now? Social media or projects or?
You look up for me at Nick Barbati on. Am I at Nicholas Barbati on?
Nicholas.
At Nicholas Barbati on Twitter or X or whatever, and I will be performing again, Atlantic City, third week of September 20th and 21st, I believe it is, at the Hard Rock Casino. Tickets available on Ticketmaster. My big gay Italian midlife crisis. I am the lead of the show.
Awesome. Wish I could.
I am the Roman Reigns. Acknowledge me, Wade.
Yes. All right. Everybody will be by this weekend with our AEW All In post show, VIP exclusive. Todd Martin, Rich Fan joining me.
Is that going to be a good show, Wade?
Yeah, it'll be a good show. I mean, AEW, as Tony Khan said in his media call, they always deliver on pay-per-view.
Good.
I mean, it's probably going to be 4 hours plus the pre-show. It's going to be a long Sunday afternoon. But the wrestlers will, earn their time. We got our on the Blue Logo shows I plugged earlier. If you haven't yet and you're watching this now, go check out our all-in preview. If you're an AEW fan, Rich Fan and I talked through the lineup and gave our predictions and analysis of match quality and that kind of thing. Just search Wade Keller, subscribe to that Blue Logo show. But you can get a 7-day free trial and check out what we do on the VIP podcast side of things. You also get ad-free versions of this show. And the other free shows that we have, the ads and plugs are removed during the breaks. So it's a more streamlined listening experience. But you can see that's just a sample on the graphic here of some of the VIP exclusive shows, Wade Keller Hotlines, Greg Parks Out Loud, Everything with Rich and Wade, on and on. So check that out. You can also get information on a full VIP membership and other ways to sign up at PWTorch.com/GoVIP. Nick, again, great talking with you. We'll talk with you soon.
All right. Always a pleasure. Thanks, Wade.
Thanks. And thanks everybody for joining us.